It was really good.
Why are they saving it for 6?
I don't know.
We'll be offended by that a little bit later.
Thank you all. Still coming up, we're going to tell you about a man arrested after videotaping the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Jim Vance and Doreen Gensler are next with News 4 at 6.
You're watching NBC4, working for you. Live from the area's leading news station, this is News 4 at 6.
The Chesapeake Bay Bridge, an iconic figure of the greater Washington landscape, and maybe a terrorist target. Good evening, I'm Jim Vance.
I'm Doreen Gensler. That may have been what a couple of off-duty police officers had in mind when they stopped some people shooting videotape of the bridge and allegedly doing some reconnaissance for a terrorist group. Julie Carey is at the bridge now. She has more.
Ishmael El-Barassi's wife tells News 4 she and her husband were just headed home to Annandale from a Delaware beach vacation with their 3 children when police pulled them over Friday at the west end of the Bay Bridge just before the toll plaza. El-Barassi's wife said she'd been videotaping the bridge and bay, sightseeing pictures she calls them, but in this affidavit, federal investigators accuse El-Barassi and his wife of, quote, providing reconnaissance and surveillance to a foreign terrorist organization, namely Hamas. It was about 1:30 Friday afternoon when Marine officers noticed El-Barassi's wife videotaping the bridge structure, but they say she lowered the camera when she spotted them.
Observed individuals of Middle Eastern descent videotaping what appeared to be them to be videotaping the structure of the bridge.
Soon after, Maryland Transit Authority police pulled over the SUV and asked for the camera and tape. El-Barassi's wife told officers they were merely taping scenery, then asked, is it a crime to videotape a bridge? Sources call the video seized troubling. Investigators say while the tape does contain some family vacation footage, it also includes video that begins about a mile east of the bridge, shots of the cables and upper supports of the main span. Portions of footage reportedly zooms in on the bridge joints. El-Barassi's attorney says the allegations of taping for Hamas are politically motivated.
The allegations pertaining to Hamas are rubbish. They date back to before 1997 when Hamas was not a designated terrorist organization. There is absolutely nothing new in this grand jury case in Chicago other than John Ashcroft's desperate need to win votes for George Bush.
El-Barassi is now being held as a material witness because of his alleged ties to several Hamas leaders who were indicted last week, accused of funneling millions of dollars to Hamas to carry out terrorist attacks. At El-Barassi's Annandale home today, his wife called the allegations of videotaping for Hamas, quote, stupid. But Maryland Governor Robert Ehrlich says the case illustrates Homeland Security is working.
There is a war going on around the world by people who simply want to do us great harm.
But again, Ishmael El-Barassi is simply being held as a material witness. He has not been charged with anything in connection with the videotaping. Now, in all, agents seized 7 videotapes and a cell phone from the SUV. They also obtained a search warrant to go into the El-Barassi home in Annandale and to look into the personal computer there and seize items there. Reporting live from the Bay Bridge, I'm Julie Carey. Back to you.
Julie, thank you. Jim?
One day after a local waiter was shot and killed during a robbery attempt in DuPont Circle, police say they have seen a spike in crime in that area. Early this morning, there was another attempted robbery in the area. Jackie Benson is in DuPont Circle now with an update on all this. Jackie?
Well, Jim, police confirm robberies are up in this area. Tonight, we will see additional police patrols, officers on horseback, canine officers walking the streets. Sources tell News 4 the car pursued by 3rd District officers after a street robbery at 19th and S Streets just after midnight is similar to the description of the getaway vehicle used in another robbery in the DuPont Circle area last week. Pursuing officers stopped the white Buick on South Capitol Street Southeast. The driver bailed out and ran. An 18-year-old passenger was arrested. He's not talking. Sources tell News 4 the missing driver resembles the suspect in the murder of 55-year-old Adrian Alstead, killed during an apparent robbery at 18th and R Streets Northwest as he was walking home from work. Meanwhile, the DuPont Circle community continues to mourn Alstead, who worked as a waiter at Annie's Steakhouse on 17th Street. D.C. Councilmember Jack Evans stopped by there today.
We do live in a city, and I always try and caution everybody to just be careful when you're out at night. Even though neighborhoods look safe, they can become unsafe very quickly, as this did. And so, we'll be talking with the chief, already talked with the commander about stepping up patrols around here because we've had a couple of incidents.
A local church has organized a prayer vigil for Adrian Alstead. It will be held tonight at 10 at DuPont Circle. Jim, back to you.
Jackie Benson. Thank you, Jackie.
4 detainees are being arraigned this week at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. These are the first U.S. military tribunals to take place since World War II. The first detainee to go before the military panel is a former chauffeur to Osama bin Laden. His name is Salim Ahmed Hamdan, and he's from Yemen. U.S. officials say Hamdan served as a bodyguard to bin Laden and delivered weapons to al-Qaeda operatives. Hamdan admits he was bin Laden's driver, but he denies taking part in terrorist activities.
Some of the Pentagon's top leaders are under fire today for leadership breakdowns that led to the Abu Ghraib prison scandal. An independent panel found that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and other top leaders did not order the abuse at the Iraqi prison, but the panel says their policies allowed guards to run amok at the prison with virtually no rules. Brian Moore has our report.
Who is to blame for these infamous scenes of shame, humiliation, and torture at Iraq's Abu Ghraib prison? An independent review ordered by the Pentagon says a small group of soldiers lost control.
There was sadism on the night shift at Abu Ghraib, sadism that was certainly not authorized. It was kind of Animal House.
But the panel also indirectly blamed Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and the top military brass here at home for losing control of their troops and breakdowns in policy and supervision.
We believe that there is institutional and personal responsibility right up the chain of command.
Meanwhile, at a military court in Germany, another round of hearings for some of the 7 soldiers charged in the Abu Ghraib incident. One of the soldiers accused of orchestrating these now notorious photographs has agreed to accept responsibility. The attorney for Staff Sergeant Chip Frederick says he and others working in a prison without rules lost their perspective in the fog of war.
That's what happened here. These were basically decent people in an evil circumstance, and they succumbed.
Frederick, his wife by his side, says he now feels ashamed.
My family, my friends, all back home, all know that I'm not that kind of person. And even God knows that I'm not that kind of person.
A new Army report being released on Wednesday is expected to be heavily critical of Lieutenant General Ricardo Sanchez. He was a top U.S. military leader in Iraq at the time of Abu Ghraib. The report is also expected to implicate as many as 24 other soldiers in the incident. On Capitol Hill, Brian Moore, News 4.
There was another suicide bombing attack in Baghdad today. The attack was aimed at the Iraqi environmental minister. She was traveling with a convoy in southern Baghdad when the bomb went off. She wasn't injured, but 4 of her bodyguards were killed, along with the suicide bomber. A second attack targeted the education minister. He was on his way to work when a roadside bomb went off. He was not injured, but one of his bodyguards was killed. Meantime, the U.S. military mounted an overnight offensive in the city of Fallujah. U.S. aircraft and artillery lit up the night sky before dawn this morning. MSNBC reports that the airstrikes were aimed at areas where terrorists have been hiding out and storing weapons.
The friends of a man who was fired for heckling President Bush protested his dismissal today. They did it outside the man's former company. Last Tuesday, Glenn Hiller heckled President Bush during a campaign rally in West Virginia. The next day, he was fired. His boss said his actions reflected badly on the company. Hiller says he believes his former boss is a good person. He says his friends' protests are misdirected. Several protest groups are fighting for a chance to be heard during the Republican National Convention in New York City next week. Yesterday, a federal judge denied permission for a major rally in Central Park. City officials have turned down requests from several groups because of security concerns. The police say their resources will be stretched with home games for both Major League Baseball teams and the U.S. Open tennis tournament happening at the same time as the convention.
For the first time today, Vice President Dick Cheney publicly acknowledged that one of his daughters is gay. At a town hall meeting in Davenport, Iowa, he was asked what he thinks about marriages between people of the same gender. The vice president said that his daughter Mary is gay, so it's an issue with which his family is very familiar. Mr. Cheney said that he believes that people ought to be free to enter into any kind of relationship, and that he believes that states should decide how they want to regulate marriage. Meanwhile, Senator John Kerry was campaigning for the Democrats in New York. He blasted the Bush campaign and its allies. Kerry said his opponents are using what he called fear and smear tactics to avoid talking about real issues such as jobs, health care, and the war in Iraq. The speech took place at Cooper's Union. It's the site of an historic anti-slavery speech delivered by President Abraham Lincoln back in 1860.
Still to come in our broadcast, the latest from Athens as the U.S. adds more medals to the collection.
Plus, American gymnast Paul Hamm just can't escape controversy at these games.
Also, our critical update for Windows users could clog up the information superhighway.
And Bob, what's ahead in our weather forecast?
Doreen, we had a lot more sunshine today and a bit more in the way of humidity, too. That's going to be around for a little while. A little steamy out there in the practice field, George.
Absolutely. Hey, you know, Bob, the baseball talks are back in D.C. trying to find out if this is where the Expos come. The Rams get clipped by a former Redskin.
And the head hog gets his offense going against the Dolphins.
Joe Bugle joins us as News 4 at 6 continues.
Tuesday, after the Olympics, the most talked about comedy premiere on television.
Make me laugh!
From the makers of Shrek, an adult comedy for every species.
This isn't about color, so don't play the pink card.
Starring John Goodman, Cheryl Hines, Orlando Jones, and Carl Reiner. With guest stars Andy Richter and Lisa Kudrow.
Mr. Right's the only man who loves me. Boogie boogie boo.
Help me. The premiere of Father of the Pride, brought to you commercial-free, the Tuesday after the Olympics.
Hey, Mr. Webb.
Stanley, let's see your homework.
Hi, Mr. Webb. This is video mail from Comcast High-Speed Internet. It's so cool, I just record myself on this free webcam, type in an email address, and send it off. Did I mention this webcam is free?
Comcast high-speed internet with video mail. Call now for this great offer and get a free webcam.
It's free and adjustable.
Oh.